Hey, welcome to the podcast. If you were here today and you're listening and you're wrestling with disappointment at any level, you might be going through it at the moment and you're thinking about your situation and it's a little disappointing. Or maybe you think about your life in general and where you've ended up versus where you've wanted to go or where you think you had the potential to go, and that's a very disappointing thought for you. Or maybe you just kind of look at your life as a whole and you kind of start to feel a little sad about it. I want to share a couple of lessons with you that I learned from my friend Chris that I think will really help you and that can really help pull you kind of out of that funk. And I want to share some lessons from my friend Chris. My friend Chris, I met him when I was 12 and he was 11 years old. Now Chris, he was in a wheelchair, but he was probably the happiest, the most energetic, most passionate person about life I've probably ever met, if I'm honest. Him, maybe two others. He's definitely in one of the top three people who've had a big, tremendous impact on my life. One of the most influential people in my life that I've dealt with. He's left a mark on my life for sure. And I learned a lot from him. And he was in a wheelchair. And he would always roll around in this wheelchair, just had this big smile on his face every time you saw him. And every time he would talk to someone, he'd just be like, yo, hey, man, what's up, man? And just everyone immediately, it didn't matter how sad you were, it didn't matter how rough your situation was. I mean, this was in a children's hospital with, a bunch of children who were ill and who were bedridden in the hospital. So, you kind of got to think there's not a ton of encouragement to go around in that kind of environment. But this kid would just roll around on his wheelchair and just everyone would light up. And I remember I met him, I was admitted for a couple weeks. He had been there for a lot longer before I had arrived, and unfortunately he ended up staying a lot longer after I was released. But he and I became very good friends. I had a surgery and, I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks. And we both bonded. We bonded over basketball. He was a Shaquille O'Neal fan. I was a Michael Jordan fan. So I had my Jordan jersey. He had a Shaq jersey. We had our basketball cards, and we'd pull them out, our binders. We'd share them. We'd trade. I'd give him some cards. I'm like, I want you to have these. He'd be like, all right, well, you got to have my Shaq rookie card. And we just talked hours basketball. We played video games. We played basketball on the PlayStation. I think it was the PlayStation 1 or 2. This was back in the day. But Chris, man, he was, there was just so much life in this guy. And, you would think that when you're talking to someone like this, like, man, this guy's got something figured out, man. His life must be going well. But, obviously it wasn't going great. We were in the hospital, and he's 11 years old. He's in a wheelchair. He was in a wheelchair because he was physically abused, and he was actually beaten to the point to where he was paralyzed. He also had suffered a lot of brain trauma and some brain damage because he was beaten in the head. And so he was at the hospital for a long time. And I think when you think about, your situation, and we think about situations of people in the world, some people you could say are dealt more difficult cards than others, sure. But I think few of us have had to deal with that kind of trauma and that kind of just life difficulty of being beaten as a child to the point to where you're paralyzed for life and you have permanent brain damage for life. And I've had a bad day, but very few of us have had that bad of a day, and have had to live essentially in a children's hospital. The thing about Chris, and I learned so many lessons from him, was, he had a gift for just really like encouraging and inspiring people. A lot of the kids that were on the floor were scared, it was their first time in the hospital, or, maybe their parents were worried because, parents stayed there at the hospital too. And he would just roll in and he would just start cracking jokes and, start laughing and start pushing the button and telling the nurse to come bring Jell-O and candy and ice cream. And even though we were in a hospital with a bunch of kids, it felt like one of the best places on earth to be. We were so happy. We had such a good time. And, I know that this is a pretty cliche saying that we all know: when life gives you lemons, what do you do with it is you make lemonade. And I think Chris in my life has been one of the biggest models of someone who has just taken an absolute dumpster fire that was thrown at him and transformed it into something beautiful that just really touched and served and helped the people around him. So I just want to share just a couple of lessons that I learned from Chris our time hanging out together, is number one, if you look at your life and you're kind of bummed and you're kind of disappointed, number one, you have a lot to be thankful for. You have a lot to be thankful for. It says in the Bible, it says, in all these things we give thanks, for this is the will of Christ in our lives. You have exponentially more to be thankful for than you do to complain about. Now, I know that it's hard to hear, especially when you're going through it or when you're in a bad mood. I don't know if you've ever been in a bad mood or you just got something going on and, you're like all negative and you're in a funk, and then there's that one person who's just like, hey, how's it going, everybody? Yeah, life is good, woo. And it's just kind of annoying, isn't it? Like, when you want to be negative, but there's that person who's just super positive and, they're just happy and they just don't care. And it's kind of annoying, but you need those people in your life because you need people to remind you that there is a lot of good things going for you. If you would just sit down, make a list, and just try to focus on the things you had to be thankful for. I mean, the fact that you're alive, right, is something to be thankful for. The fact that you're able to listen to audio on probably an iPhone or on an Android device, for those of you techies out there, or maybe you're watching it on a laptop. If you're watching it from America, wherever you're from, we have a lot to be grateful for, and we have way more to be grateful for than we do to complain about. And I guarantee you that when you start looking for things in your life to be thankful for, your attitude's going to flip. Your mentality's slowly going to change. And the cool thing about when you begin to change your attitude and when the way you think begins to change, right, and when God can get a hold of your thoughts and you can actually begin to listen to what he says about you, it's going to start changing your habits. It's going to start changing your actions. See, gratitude changes everything in your life. And lesson number one that I learned from Chris is just be grateful. Chris was so grateful to be in that hospital, man. He would come up like, hey, man, you want candy? Dude, I just push a button, and we just get candy whenever we want. And dude, you want to play video games? Like, I'll just snap my fingers, and the nurses will come, and they'll bring us video games, and we can play all night. They don't make us go to bed or sleep or anything. I mean, like, he was so grateful to be there. And I just want to encourage you, if you're going through it or you're discouraged or depressed about your life, think about some things that you have to be grateful for. Lesson number 2 is you're always in a position to be able to help someone else. You're always in a position to be able to help someone else. Now, a lot of times when we go internal and we start thinking about our situation and we get all sad and discouraged, the last thing we think about is other people and trying to help them. But I want to encourage you, I want to try to give you some perspective. You are absolutely in a position to help someone else. There's always going to be someone who's less fortunate than you. Sure, we're used to like going on social media and comparing ourselves to, people who show us these extravagant lives and who show us the very best of life. They show us very filtered lives, right? And we tend to measure our lives against what we see in our atmosphere or what we see on media or what kind of our society feeds to us. And that's kind of how we develop essentially our paradigm for what our life should look like. And a lot of times, especially if you compare yourself to what you see on social media, you're going to get discouraged because you're going to feel like your life does not line up to that. And you might feel like you're behind the curve and you might not be able to inspire anyone else. But I want to encourage you and I want to tell you the truth that you are in a position to help someone else. And one of the quickest ways to get out of a funk is to go serve and go help someone else. Right? Go help and serve someone that you know needs help. Go serve someone less fortunate than you. Go do something, but get out of yourself. Right? Go find someone to help. My friend Chris, is probably, I can't think of many people that I've read about or that I know who've had a worse situation than Chris. But just the number of people that he served and helped, and as a result, he helped so many people go through some of the most devastating, traumatic times of their lives. And I bet you there are dozens, if not hundreds of other people who can tell stories about Chris like I am today. He got me through a hard time as well. And you're always in a position to help someone else. And if you're getting internal and you're starting to feel all just despair about yourself and your situation, then just stop thinking about your situation. Think about someone else's situation and go help them and go serve them. I guarantee you that will help you get out of your funk, and that will help you go and become effective, not only in pulling yourself out, but in pulling others out. And that leads to lesson number 3, is the best way to help yourself is to find a way to help others. The best way to help yourself is to find a way to help and to serve others. You know, the thing about Chris and is that he took, you know, this essentially this weakness, right? This handicap. I mean, I guess literally, but this setback that life gave him, and he turned it into like his superpower that he used to serve people and to help people. You know, his greatest obstacle became his greatest testimony, and as a result, that became the greatest gift that he had to give people as they walked through some of the most challenging times of their lives. You know, and I don't know what you've gone through. You know, we all have different life experiences. We all have gone through different things and experienced different things. And some of us have gone through some very traumatic things, but I want to, you know, hopefully encourage you and maybe get you to think a little differently about your situation. It's easy to think about the pain that we've experienced in life and the challenging things and start to get internal and question, you know, why me? Why did this happen? You know, and kind of get a little sympathetic towards ourselves. You know, that's a natural human response. But I want to challenge you to take what's happened in your life, process it, heal from it, and then instead of using that experience as a way and as an excuse to hold yourself back, use that as an excuse to serve others, and use that as your superpower that you're going to use to help other people and to lead other people to freedom, to lead other people to Christ, to lead other people, you know, into overcoming their traumas, into overcoming their obstacles. Man, I guarantee when you do those things, you're going to come out of your mess. You know, you're going to start, instead of being inward focused, you're going to be outward focused, and you're going to begin to see that the people around you in your life, they're going to begin to respond. And you're going to start to see that as your chains come off, the people around you, their chains are going to start to come off as well, because of your decision to overcome and because of your decision to use that which was meant for your bad, right? That which was meant to destroy you, and you turn that into something that you use, you know, to help others find freedom. So, man, my friend Chris, he taught me so many things, and man, I could talk for hours about the experiences I had with him. But if I could encourage you with anything, and I bet if Chris were here today and he was going to talk to you, he would say, keep going. It's not over. You're going to be okay. If you're still breathing, that means that you still got life in you. That means you still got a story ahead. And that means you can still keep moving forward, and you can still keep pressing on towards the prize. Right, that's what Paul says in the Bible. He says, I've not obtained it yet, but one thing I do is I look forward, I press on towards the prize of the upward calling of God on my life. So don't allow disappointment to hold you down. Deal with your disappointment. Deal with your pain. Find out what you're grateful for. All right, find out how you can serve others, and then go turn that thing into a superpower. Go help others get free. Much love. Tune in. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on YouTube. We're posting this everywhere. We've got tons more content coming out. We've got some interviews coming out. It's going to be really great. So make sure you subscribe, and just hope that, you know, as you listen, we really want to help you find God, discover your purpose, and become a person of influence.